All right, damas y caballeros, welcome back to WorldSalsaRadio.com. My name is Felipe Martinez, EldelaClaveSF from San Francisco, and I am here at the Reno Latin Dance Fest, the 2024 edition with DJ Orlando Felix, El BoriQua, and we have
tú sabes.
and we have a very, very special guest.
Bueno, mi gente, this guy, legend, you know, and we go back with him a couple decades at least.
Yeah.
And he's been out of the Congress circuit for a few years, and now you're kind of coming back. But ladies and gentlemen, let's give a virtual welcome to la leyenda de New York, Frankie Martinez.
Vaya. ¿Cómo estamos? What's going on?
Siéntense. Ya tú sabes. ¿Cómo está, Frankie?
I'm good, papi. I'm good. I'm living life through dance still after all the stuff we've been through. But I'm enjoying it. I'm trying to stay young, and I'm trying to.
You look great, man.
Thank you, papi.
No,
¿Qué estás comiendo?
Parece que tiene 25 todavía.
Tengo 48 ahora.
Get out of here.
48 cumplí.
Bueno, sí, yo tengo 45. Sí, estamos en la misma.
I was always a little older than people thought I was throughout the time that people were meeting me.
Yeah.
I always looked young. But, you know, meditation, karate, dance, you know, the way I eat.
Clean food.
No alcohol, no fuma.
No, I don't drink. I never drank.
Yeah.
You know, my first manager was Henry Knowles, right? DJ
Sí.
Henry Knowles, you know, and he's like super vegan, he looks like a kid too, you know, so I had to keep up. And every time I see my friends from high school, everybody still looks good. I'm thinking I look good, they're going to think I look good, and I see them, and I'm like, shit, everybody looks good, I got to maintain.
Okay.
Me tengo que mantener.
Claro.
You know, todo el mundo, everybody's on it.
Wow, man. So, yeah, welcome to World Salsa Radio. I believe someone did an interview with you. Who was it? Ricardo, I think. Ricardo Linel.
Ricardo, Güero.
That's right, Güero, yeah. So, welcome back, I guess.
Thank you.
I was Salsa Radio, right?
Yeah.
So I met you about 20 years ago, man. You came to do a show at Café Kokomo.
Oh,
which was
San
the welcome
Francisco.
to the party. It was the welcome to the party when you know, exploded.
Right.
And it was Frankie Martinez all over the world.
Sí, después de eso, no turning back, right?
Yeah.
Oye, Frankie, pues vamos a darle más rewind. No, vamos a darle más para atrás a tu historia.
Yeah.
¿Dónde empezó tu pasión por la salsa?
Eso fue por mi papá. Mi papá era coleccionista de música.
Okay.
De España.
Mm.
And he would tell me all these stories about the concerts he would go to and the battle of the two Titos, you know, and things he would go. He was actually at the Cheetah Club when they filmed Our Latin Thing.
Nice.
Yeah, he was there.
Nice.
I remember watching that. My mother's like, look for your father. He's in there somewhere. But so I was always involved in it. But my father moved to Florida. My parents divorced when I was young, 5 years old. My father was around, but as a teenager, he moved to Florida. And while I was in the Navy, I reconnected with him in Florida. And I was homesick. And what made me feel better was having my girlfriend send me tapes of La Mega on Thursday nights, and they would play the Salsa Dura. And for some reason, it was making me feel better about being home. And there were no Puerto Ricans in the rest of the country. Todo era Mexicano, Suramericano. And so Martinez, on my uniform, everybody assumed I was Mexican, right? And it was the military, the rest of the country, you know, outside of Philadelphia, Chicago, you know, there's not a lot of Puerto Ricans. So I felt a little estranged. And the music is what kind of connected me. And then with my father, and then because I'm a karateka, I tend to want to express things physically, and so I had to kind of find the dance. At that time, there was nothing going on. I had to go to the Yellow Pages when I got out of the military, and I saw salsa in the phone book. We always danced, but I never did it formally.
Right.
I thought you had to have that in the family, you know? Yo no entendía que tú podías ir a una escuela y aprenderlo formalmente así.
Exacto.
So when I saw people dancing in Florida, and I said, coño, espérate. They're learning this from somewhere. It's systematized, you know. And I felt a chinito doing it, and I'm like, coño, yo de Puerto Rico, and I can't do what these chinitos are doing. Pardon. So I came running home to study, and I ended up in Eddie Torres' classes, and forget it.
El maestro.
That was it.
Yeah. You know, I was extremely talented in martial arts, but the second I got into Eddie's studio, I was like, I could do this. I understood it. You know, it made sense.
Did you struggle at the beginning? No.
In 3 months, they used to call me El Prodigio. They used to call me Alien. because the whole road from the military to Eddie's class, I was buscando información, ¿sabes? Mirando bailarines en discotecas y agarrando cosas. And because I studied karate, my ability, and I taught karate for a long time, my ability to agarrar cosas físicas, you know, my head was good for that. And so, but when I got to Eddie's, he connected all these things that I had disconnections about. And because he made those things firm, yo fui corriendo. And so, 3 months I was in Eddie's company. 5 months, my first show at Madison Square was at Madison Square Garden.
Nice.
Concierto del Amor.
Wow.
The first routine I did was to accompany Eddie Palmieri in Vámonos Pa'l Monte. That was the first thing we did. 20,000 people, Madison Square Garden. That was my first, right? So my mother says, you know, you got this from your grandfather. And I'm like, ¿cuál grandfather? Because los abuelos que yo conocía no bailaban. Eran blanquitos, españoles, ¿sabes? But my father's biological father era negro, africano, puertorriqueño africano. Nobody wanted to talk about it porque había una controversia y
siempre la familia, ¿no?
Nobody wanted to talk about who he was.
El bochinche.
Bochinche. But when they went looking for him, todo el mundo, no, Francisco Martinez, sí, el bailarín.
Oh.
Let me tell you, this is after, and when I'm getting ready to get on stage at Madison Square Garden, my mother tells me this, and I'm like, se me paraban los pelos.
Claro.
And I was like, you gotta be kidding, this is so weird how life, por todos los artes marciales y todas las cosas que yo, el militario, y para llegar al baile así, y entonces después saber que en la familia había esa cosa. My father was a good dancer too, pero tú sabes, así le lo lae, right?
Es súper interesante porque lo escucho a él y la historia de él es parecida a la mía en otro ángulo.
Mira.
So, just make it quick.
Yeah.
I'm an Air Force vet.
Okay.
So I joined the military from Puerto Rico.
Right.
Me fui para el Air Force en el 92. Me mandaron para Okinawa.
Wow.
So yo llego a Okinawa, yo estaba homesick to another level porque no había redes sociales, no había ni fucking email. So había que escribir cartas. Hola, estoy bien.
En esos tiempos.
Sí. Entonces ahí fue que yo empecé porque yo bailaba breakdancing y todas estas cosas.
Sí, yo también.
Y me metí a escuchar salsa, Frankie. Y esto es que yo lo escuchaba. Y empecé a correr CD y CD. Y para conectarme con Puerto Rico.
Claro.
Sí,
porque era mi única conexión.
¿Te hacía falta?
Definitivamente. Y hablando de historia de música, pues mi abuela, yo le he dicho, mi abuela vive en New York desde el 46 hasta que falleció en el 2009, 1946 hasta el 2009.
Coño.
Ella vivía ahí en la 153rd en Broadway.
Okay.
Y la mejor amiga de ella es Graciela, de Machito.
Oh, shit.
Okay.
Mira.
Y Buyú, que es Mangual, José Mangual padre.
Sí.
Santa María, ellos eran santeros, mi abuela era santera.
Wow.
Y todo eso, ¿no? Entonces mi papá se fue para New York en el 57, se pasaba en el Palladium, vio a Tito Rodríguez, a
Mira
Tito
eso, las
Puente,
conexiones,
o sea, todo. Y de él bajé esa enciclopedia de música.
Sí.
Tú sabes, y el download, yo le digo.
Eso mismo. Mi mamá todavía tiene disco escrito con nota de amor, con letra de amor, que mi papá se lo arregló.
Yeah. Ahora, sin
Ella
embargo,
lo tiene.
la pasión de mi papá son los tríos.
Sí.
Los tríos.
Ah, sí.
Los boleros,
panchos,
todo
no
eso.
sé.
Sí, claro.
Pero dale, continúa, papito. Perdóname.
No. Y así fue. Me envolví ahí en la clase de Eri y fui volando. Era una cosa como, tú sabes, estos niños que por alguna razón encuentran la lógica en el chess o algo así, como que naturalmente el cerebro como que lo agarra.
Sí.
Yo sentí de esa manera. And like I said, I was talented in martial. I was very talented. I was number 2 in New York City in kata competition in 97 and 98 behind my teacher. But the second I got into the studio, I was like, I could do this at another level. You know, like I felt it right away. And then, you know, because I was learning so fast, because people didn't realize that I was already agarrando información. And so it kind of exploded. And then aplicando la filosofía de los artes marciales después.
To dance.
Right. Al baile.
Un poquito de hip hop, porque lo veo. You got a little fusion there in the dance.
But when you say to apply the martial arts ideology into dance, you mean what? Like
in terms of
el balance?
In philosophy, right? And how we use the dance in life. Because it's all infused with Zen Buddhism. My first karate instructor got me into Zen Buddhism as well, right? And the Buddhism is the Zen specifically is the overarching philosophy that's happening in the martial arts. and also the way martial arts is trained, right? How you practice to develop skill sets that you want to develop. We don't have that in Latin dance, right? Yo te lo enseño y tú lo tienes que hacer y tú lo vas desarrollando tú mismo, tratando de agarrar niveles de trascendencia, ¿sabes? Pero lo estás haciendo solo. There's no methodology to how to practice an exercise that will slowly develop you.
And I told you, I do taekwondo. I'm black belt in taekwondo. So es lo mismo, no hay una evaluación.
Eso.
En taekwondo, en artes marciales, evaluación. Ok, tú quieres llegar aquí, let me see it.
Right.
Entonces tú lo tienes que hacer frente a todo el mundo, al frente de los maestros. Y ellos están, es como un poquito military, para hacerte claro. Y you have to perform in front of them for them to go, okay, you can move to the next level. ¿Me entiendes? Ya viene la
That's
próxima
true. We don't have that in
No,
Latin
if
music.
I want to shake my shoulders, I show you a few exercises, but there's nothing that I can do on a daily basis for decades that's going to improve my ability to shake my shoulders and allow me to find different levels of what that means, why I'm using it in the dance and how I'm phrasing those shimmies, because it's just a shimmy. And for most people, it's just a shimmy. But when you have to teach somebody who's never seen that before culturally, I started to come up with exercises to get them to do it. I was doing it naturally, but while I'm showing them these exercises, mine is getting better, you know? And so I started thinking, coño, if we do this the way we do karate, if I come up with ways to work foot dexterity, right, by itself, not footwork patterns, but to work dexterity in your feet, right, to give yourself rudiments como tienen los bateristas, tienen ejercicio de ritmo para desarrollar la habilidad de tocar ritmos, diferentes ritmos, right? And so we don't have rudiments in dance, right? So you create this system of things that I can live with. Entonces yo vivo de esa manera, como karateca, usando ejercicio físico que son de baile en vez de los ejercicios de los artes marciales. And there's no difference, right? There's no, because at the end of the day, in Japan they say mastery is universal, right? It doesn't matter how you get to mastery, what you end up understanding is the same, right? It doesn't matter if you're master of martial arts or master of dance or master of the violin, what you understand about life is the same exact thing. And so I'm still doing martial arts, but my exercises are the exercises of dance, you know?
Wow.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Lo llevo a otro nivel. Es como hablar con Giovanni Hidalgo. Oye, Giovanni, cuéntame la cosa. Y se va para otra estrategia. También sacan eso. Palmieri también hace eso.
Sí.
Se meten en
Tú
otro
puedes
mundo.
hacer esto con pom, o tú puedes hacer y se va volando y
Porque
este loco.
cuando tú tienes que usar la filosofía de la conga con el piano y tienes que hablar de dexteridad, te empiezan a hablar un lenguaje que tú dices, háblame español, papá, porque no te entiendo.
Sí, no, increíble, chéverísimo.
Pero me gusta la idea porque yo creo que, especialmente en el baile, las artes marciales te ayudan más que todo lo que hablaste, te ayuda con el balance.
Eso mismo.
Porque tú tienes un balance cabrón para hacer artes marciales, todo tiene que estar en cierto punto, tu pie tiene que estar así,
el centro, controlando el centro, todo eso. No, es como lo que hacen lo de ballet, tú sabes, es entrenamiento del cuerpo y tener eso es, tú sabes, es una cosa, te da mucha oportunidad físicamente.
Y entonces con Eddie Torres, ¿cuántos años bailaste con Eddie?
Yo 4 años con él, de los 96 hasta el 2000. Cuando murió Tito Puente, él tumbó la compañía que había.
Estaba Jalil Thomas, ¿estaba en esa? No, Jalil estaba
antes.
Era
la generación antes de nosotros.
Porque ese era de Tito Puente Dancers, that's what they were called?
Yeah. Bailamos con Tito Puente, pero un montón con Celia Cruz. Hay un video por ahí circulando que es el cumpleaños de Tito y nosotros, los bailarines, le traemos el bizcocho y todo en la tarima y todo. Por ahí está el video que de vez en cuando un alumno me dice, mira, le están tocando el video de Tito Puente y te veo bailando ahí con tal y tal.
¿Y cómo tú, cuando tú ves ese Frankie Martinez en video con los baggy pants y the baggy silky shirts,
mira, también
a lo que vino en Los Ángeles 2003, que viniste con estilo... Tell me about that transition.
Right? Well, you know, styles, different eras. I've been doing this for so long, you know, the things change. But I was still, you know, a hip hop kid with baggy pants. You know, it was a transition. You know, it was a transition, and all the glittery shirts and the sequence vests and Coño, we had to know the name of this shop, you know, on 7th Avenue and 46th Street, where they sold these cummerbunds and these sparkly ties and all this shit. And I was in there all the time comprando freaking stuff
Para los
I
shows,
would
para los
never
shows.
wear. Yeah.
That's
Para
funny.
estar en tarima
That's funny.
con Tito Puente. Tengo la foto también.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I've been real lucky. I'm so grateful. You know, like I'm real lucky. Lucky that I got into it, but I got into it when I got into it, and I had the opportunity to be on stage with it, because a lot of these guys, you know, they got names and they weren't
They
there.
don't even
papi.
know.
They didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't have that opportunity to do stuff like that.
And I guess also being in New York, that
Absolutely.
definitely helped.
Absolutely.
It was the
Claro.
center of salsa, right?
The fact that Eddie Palmieri is still there, you know what I mean? I can't leave until, you know, like the last semblance of those guys is still around and they're still
Yeah.
kicking around y todavía tienen concierto, and I just saw him at Birdland not too long
Y se
ago.
están yendo todos de todos los niveles, porque el otro día se fue Orlando Marín.
Yeah.
Eso fue que hace como
Yeah,
un mes, ¿verdad?
yeah,
Que
yeah.
se murió.
Se lo
están
están
yendo.
perdiendo, you know,
Sí,
poco a
sí.
poco y para disfrutar de lo que tenemos, ¿sabes? Aunque lo tenemos.
Yo me acuerdo que papi me decía historia cuando él vivía en el barrio y él iba a recortarse el pelo y a cada rato entraba Cheo Feliciano.
Sí.
Cheo con sus problemitas en aquel
Sí.
entonces, ¿no? Sus problemitas. Y sí, él me decía, sí, él siempre entraba. Era cuando está con Yucuba.
Sí,
Yeah,
mira esa.
yeah, yeah.
Uno de mis cantantes favoritos.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, Cheo, el
Sí,
cantante,
sí.
para mí el cantante más completo que habla salsa, porque te canta bolero, te canta
Sí.
salsa, te es buen
Ay,
sonero,
ay, ay.
Sí, sí,
hace
sí.
de todo.
De ese
Todo.
tiempo, so when you're done with Eddie Torres to BoriQua,
Yeah.
what
Oh,
happened to Frankie
You know what
at that
happened?
time?
I heard La Libertad Lógica, hablando del Palmieri, right? La Libertad Lógica in the car one day with a bunch of dancers, and I was thinking, coño, this is like an opera, right? You can hear the tambor fighting against the trumpets, los esclavos y los españoles.
Yeah.
It was there, right? And I said, imagínate to do a dance routine that's not just cabaret, but that actually tells the story that this song is telling. There's a lot here, right? It's very theatrical. And so when Eddie cut the company, I got a bunch of dancers together, because in those days you couldn't leave Eddie without being on bad terms, right? There was no good way of leaving Eddie. Everybody that left, he wasn't talking to.
Oh my goodness.
And I was warned about it, you know, and so I was like, coño, it was time for us to move on, but I didn't want to lose Eddie as a mentor.
right.
And so when Tito Puente died, he cut the company, and I was like, okay, here we go. Like,
What are we
I
gonna
want to
do?
try this thing with La Libertad Lógica. And it happened to turn into BoriQua, you know?
Okay.
And we brought in...
So that transition was quick, pretty
yeah,
much, right?
it was very quick. I mean, I was already starting to teach, but because I was teaching in my girlfriend's hair salon, Aisha Coswara, which I was dating at the time, that I did La Palomilla with and
Sí.
everything. Aisha's a hairdresser, and we
Yeah.
were doing classes in the salon. We would move the chairs.
That's
mira,
fantastic,
packed,
man. That's
lleno,
fantastic.
lleno,
Do what you got to do.
in the Lower East
Fantastic.
Side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where we started. A tango teacher saw me there and said, we're opening a studio, come. I didn't look to teach, como que era algo orgánico.
Llegó, yeah.
But yeah, so we had the space to rehearse. I would cut little pieces of paper just so they could stand up, and I would assign them numbers, and I would do like figures and shapes in a notebook, and then I would stand the papers up, and you know, in this part of the song we're going to shift to this formation, and and I'm on the coffee table, tú sabes, moviendo los papelitos to figure out how the flow was going to
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
And the first thing I choreographed was La Libertad Lógica.
Wow.
Wow.
And so yeah, that turned into this thing. You know, it was like we did it in Latin Madness at the time that Nelson Flores was doing.
Sí, ahí estaba, ¿cómo se llama esta muchacha que venía para San Francisco? Amarili.
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 Sí,
Yo me enamoré de esa muchacha. Oh my
sí.
De
God.
todos nos enamoramos de ella.
At
esa
the
época.
beginning, when I started, she was one of the first people I saw in Latin
Yeah.
Quarter when I was trying to get information. I was like, oh my God, if I could just be able to dance with this
She's
woman.
fantastic.
Ella era increíble.
Sí, fantastic.
Yo la vi a ella hace como unos 7 años, la vi en Miami.
Oh, really?
Ahorita she's in Florida now.
Wow.
I believe
Yeah,
she's in
todo el
New
mundo
York.
sabe
She got married.
No, she's in New York, but she was in Florida on vacation.
Wow.
Entonces ella me dejó saber y me encontré con
Yeah.
ella. She's Amarili.
Yeah.
Wow.
Beautiful
Tremendo.
dancers back
Sí,
then.
sí.
My
A
goodness.
time where people they were amazing dancers and they had no inkling to do any of this stuff that we're doing now, and because it wasn't around and they chose not to do it,
Yeah.
they're out of people's consciousness. But let me tell you something. You know, people do, what do you think of so and so? And I'm like, man, I've seen so many dancers that it's, you know, it's cute, they're kids. But if you really want to talk about like heavyweights, you know, DeLille and all those guys that were around back then. I mean, even Izzy Rodriguez. I just saw him recently. Remember Izzy Rodriguez?
Izzy Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Él hacía cosas con Henry No. Siempre estaban haciendo las fiestas. That dude danced with Eddie for a while. And he's a little goofball. I love him to death. That dude, when he dances, you don't see that anywhere, man.
Really?
It's like old Eddie, like old 80s, like it's such a different thing, and it's something that's so lost in favor of so many things that are not as impressive to me.
That's funny you mentioned that, because I remember fucking years ago, I took a class with DeLille Thomas.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like that, you know, he talks to you, but as soon as he starts teaching, the posture change. The way you move, she's like, oh,
Es que
this
eso
is
no
so
Yeah, it's
cool,
like
man.
possessed, you know?
Yeah.
It's like
Eso
un
no era-
demonio que tiene.
Eso era una época diferente.
Sí,
o sea, en aquel
claro,
entonces
claro,
tenía Eddie Torres, entonces obviamente un poquito mayor.
Sí.
Pues, después vinieron los Felipe Polancos de Puerto
Sí,
Rico,
de Puerto
tú
Rico,
sabes.
Papito Jala Jala,
Sí,
olvídate de
sí,
eso,
no,
olvídate de eso.
y esa generación de carisma,
sí,
¿cómo
sí.
se llama? El de carisma.
Víctor, ¿no es Víctor?
Sí, Víctor, el dominicano.
Víctor, sí.
Víctor, ya.
Y pues, Santo Rico, y
Sí,
estaba todo el
sí,
mundo,
sí,
que
sí,
de ahí
sí.
salió Amarillo y de Santo
Eso,
Rico.
sí.
Eso era una época increíble.
Increíble. Por eso que te digo que me siento muy orgulloso de lo que yo pude tener la experiencia de ese tiempo que me pasó en ese momento para tener eso, porque
Yeah.
¿Qué impacto tuvo Welcome to the Party when that came out in LA? I mean, in LA, it's the first time I saw it,
Right.
where it blew up. And I actually performed at that Congress with a team
Oh,
from
shit.
Sacramento.
Yeah.
no way.
And I remember you closed the first set
Yes.
that
Yeah.
night. And how was that for you? Because, I mean, after that, it was
That was
like,
deep. You know, I debuted that in London, and it was always a duet. And then
Who are you doing it with?
I was doing it with
Aisha.
Aisha.
With Aisha.
I choreographed it with Aisha. I choreographed that in a 6-hour trip. I was going to see a girlfriend in Toronto, and on the way back home, I choreographed the whole
train.
shit in my head in the
Oh,
car. I
car.
was driving. The whole 6 hours,
Nice.
6 hours is driving fast
Yeah.
from Toronto to New York. But I was driving, and the whole time I kept playing the song, and I did about 90% of the choreography there in the car. Like I was in
Todo en la cabeza
fiebre
primero.
que yo tenía ahí, y se me estaba saliendo todos los pasos. I got home, I grabbed Aisha, mira, haz esto. And we finished it up there, and we went to Trash and Vaudeville on St. Mark's on the Lower East Side. It's like this rockero place that has all these weird clothes, and we got those Chaos shirts. We cut the sleeves off of them, you know. But so what happened was Aisha wasn't able to travel after a while, and I was training Lori to start to travel with me. But in the interim, I went by myself and I turned it into a solo, and no one had ever gotten on stage
by themselves.
by
To do a
themselves
solo, yeah.
before,
Sí, sí.
right? And so I've heard stories about people that were amazed, but they kept waiting for my partner to show up in the
At what point of the
routine.
day?
Where's his partner? And she's gonna come, and then the thing ended, and they were like, "Oh my God, he
Yeah.
did the shit by himself." You know what I mean? And that was the beginning of that whole thing, you know. And because I was versed when we started the company, we used to go to see a lot of stuff at BAM, at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, at Manhattan Center, at all these places where dance companies would show their stuff, because I was trying to wrap my head around choreography at another level, you know, like how they were expressing ideas through dance, right? And so for me, it wasn't a big thing, you know, like I'm by myself, I'm gonna figure it out by myself.
Right.
We always had moments where there were solos. Eddie would come out in the middle of a routine and he would do something for a few bars, but to do the whole number that way, I didn't think much of it. But
No,
after that, it was like,
It was a standing ovation. I
Yeah,
remember the
man.
response
Yeah.
in LA was
They went nuts. It was
crazy.
crazy. They went nuts.
So how did that impact your career moving forward?
it wasn't the show, it was the damn video that Albert Torres, he sold like 250,000 copies of the video of that.
Oh, yeah, because they were selling
Congress that
DVDs
night,
from
right.
the Congress, yeah.
To the point that I went to an entertainment lawyer because I didn't get 10 cents from that, and I was on the thing, you know. And
Imagine.
I never, me and Henry, we never signed the rights
Disclosure,
to use
nothing.
my image.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we always used to catch that in the contracts and take it out. And we told Albert, and he's like, "No, everybody had to sign it. We didn't sign that. We never signed that." And so he got really nasty. But he sold so many, and every year I would go, "You're the guy from the video. You're the guy from the video." You're the guy from the
Oh,
And
man.
they started with the shoes, and they started putting the shoes into the. But the funny thing is, recently I was in Italy, in Milan, and a young woman who was taking my workshops while I was there, the day of the show, which is the end of a week that I was there, She grabs me aside, and she's already almost in tears, and she says, when I was 11 years old, I saw this video of this guy dancing, and I fell in love with him. And it was something that impacted the rest of my life. I was always had this in the back of my head. She took the workshops and everything, and the day of the show, she realized I was the guy in the video.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, man.
And kids are telling me this constantly. I was having dinner with Dijon and Chloe, and she was telling me, yeah, I was like 11, 10 years old, 9 years old watching you, and I was like, oh my God, like the pictures, people tell me I was 11 years old, my mother at that Congress, and we took a picture with you. And it just, you don't realize the amount of time that has passed, you know, and like these kids that you see, and then they end up being world-class dancers later on, and you took a picture with this little kid at one point. But yeah, man.
Para mí, the most impactful thing about that LA trip, it wasn't so much your show when everybody stood up to give you your props. I enjoyed your tech.
Oh, really?
Because you did it in jeans,
Yes.
and you know you did it like, you know, bro. To me,
Wow, I don't
it
even
was
remember
it
this.
was
better?
more impactful watching you, because that was the one time that all the dancers came to the front, because oh, mira, Frankie Martinez, la tarima, Frankie Martinez. So we all came to the front and we watched, and everybody was like,
Oh, man.
like
I
jaw
have
drop.
no recollection of
Jaw
the tech.
drop.
Wow.
Yeah, jaw drop. I enjoyed that more than the show itself, because by the time I saw the show, I had to see,
Yeah,
I'd
you
already
had-
seen
right,
it.
the shock
So,
value was-
yeah,
right.
so it was gone, and then you were in the tights or whatever, but
Right.
in the tech you were
Yeah.
in jeans con un poquito bell bottom,
Yeah.
and qué sé yo.
Yeah, the
tenías
bell
el
bottoms
y
was
tenías
the
el
thing.
pañuelito.
Yeah, el pañuelito. My hair was really long.
Yeah, no, my God.
Forget it.
Oh, my God. Y para mí eso fue como, ahí yo creo que hubo un shift yo hablé esto con él ayer, un shift en la salsa en cuanto a la moda,
Sí,
en
yeah,
cuanto a,
yeah.
tú sabes,
Well,
todas esas
yeah,
cosas.
we experienced that.
Sí,
when
y
you came
yo
to
te echo la
Kokomo,
culpa a ti. A mí me dicen,
Yeah,
oye,
yeah.
¿por qué ya no se visten? Por Frankie Martinez.
Sí, yeah.
Frankie Martinez.
That happened. It
Frankie
happened.
Martinez.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
true. You,
I
you
was
came
getting
to
all the-
Kokomo. You came to Kokomo with jeans and
Right.
your jazz shoes in the back of the jeans,
Yeah.
right?
They wouldn't.
A week later, everybody was wearing like you.
Frankie, before you, we couldn't get into clubs with jeans.
I know.
And then all of a sudden,
I know.
It's like,
In New York, para ir a Copacabana, I couldn't dress like that.
yeah.
It was when Henry started doing his own parties, when he did this place called Hush for a little while, and then El Flamingo. And because Henry era encarga de las cosas, entonces nosotros entramos con
Como querían.
camiseta y gorra. But then I would go to Paris, and everybody's wearing my hats, and they're wearing this, and I'm like, mira esto. And then they don't even say hello to me. They walk right by me like that, and I'm like, coño, at least acknowledge you got that from me.
Yeah.
That's-
No,
Yeah,
yo dije que ese
yeah.
fue el shift en fashion.
Yeah.
Cuando a mí me preguntan qué pasó, y yo le digo, no, macho, para ir al club hay que ir encorbatado
Yeah,
y
sí,
todo
era.
trajeado. How come they don't do it anymore? Yo, Frankie Martinez.
Yeah,
I
we blame you
took
for
took
that.
the blame for anything that changed in the scene
Yeah.
that was not like it
Yeah.
was. I took all the blame for that at that time.
Blame Frankie.
That was actually, I mean, I remember
That-
seeing that in San Francisco. It was like,
Sí.
mira,
Yeah,
mira,
yeah.
con jazz shoes in the back.
I have a really strong recollection of that first trip to San
Yeah?
Francisco, and the feedback afterwards too. And I was getting emails. Yeah.
For me, you guys were seeing this man right here. My first recollection of him seeing was he debuted that routine in Hawaii before he got into LA.
Yeah. See.
See,
There
I
was-
was there when he brought that routine
Oh, yeah?
out in Hawaii. I was there.
There
when
was
he
a bunch
debuted.
of, and I have pictures. I was talking to the guy in the UK that brought us out there when we debuted it. When I first debuted it with Aisha, it was there. And there's a couple of videos of us in the original costumes, because all of that happened before I started doing it by myself. Right?
Yep.
Then me and Laurie started doing it in jean vests, right, with the white bandanas, because our costumes, our luggage got lost in Madrid, and we went to the Gap and bought jean outfits, cut the sleeves off, and then that became Laurie and I's costume for Welcome to the Party. But I was in between all of that, I was doing it by myself. But by the time people got wind of it, and it's because of that video, it's because of the video, everybody's, the first time they saw it, they think it was the first time it ever happened. But
Right,
yeah,
right, right.
Yeah.
there was a bunch
So
of times. The Hawaii
And
trip,
the Hawaii trip was
I
the
remember
first
that
time
trip
he
really.
debuted it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And I was like to tell you when he came out, and when he came out, and when before he came out, Albert and the announcer was like, Ray Cruz was like, do not film, do not tape anything.
Yeah,
because
I
was
used to
his
do that.
birthday.
I used to tell
Yeah.
him
And he did
red
that all the
lights. I could
time.
see the red lights. Turn them off. Yeah.
Yeah, turn them off and whatnot. Have you
Not
so
in
no
LA.
one-
No.
And
And
that's
no
why-
one turned on the lights, and that's when he came in jeans and did his routine. Everybody's like, "Whoa!" He all dressed up in jeans, and
Right.
after he got done doing his thing, and people walked by him like he's like, "Okay," just didn't recognize.
No, because the thing with going to the theater and watching shows, and they take the cameras away from you.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a thing about protecting like protecting how people were able to be exposed to me, because if you have me in your house and you're able to rewind over and over again, when you see me, something about that is diminished, right? And they do, that's why they do it, and you can't go into Broadway.
Oh yeah, you cannot
flashing a camera and filming stuff, right? And so I was trying to protect that at that time. And it's funny because there's still so many videos, you know, still. And thank goodness, right? Because that's why we have a record of these things,
right?
You know,
right, that's true.
Because what I was trying to do didn't work, and thank goodness it didn't work. Right?
Man, I was on the hunt for that song. When you debuted with that routine, I was on the hunt for that song.
People told me they heard the
song.
I heard that song and I passed it up. I didn't think anything of it until I saw you do it, and then I was like, oh my God, this song's amazing. Why did I was teaching people the song. You know, like
what is it? Are you percussion?
Yeah.
You know the story of that?
No,
album?
no.
Those are kids. They're 15-year-old kids. That's a Harlem youth program.
Yep.
To get kids off the street to teach them music, and they just happened to record that album. It wasn't really like a universally distributed album. It was the Harlem Youth Program. They recorded it, and I got it on a compilation. I think it was the Saoko compilation. There was a compilation where it popped up in the compilation, and that's where I heard it. And at the time, the Haru album was out of print, and there was a few copies at Casa Latina. I was able to get a few, but I was buying all the copies because you couldn't find it anywhere. And because of people trying to find the song, they reprinted it and it started circulating again.
Yep, and that's how I got my hands on it. Shortly after, probably, because you was there in the February, you was in winter when you debuted that routine.
Right.
And then probably in July, I was able to get my copy of it on CD, and then later on.
Yeah, you had to order it. It was weird.
To order it,
People had the vinyl. Like I knew these old funk DJs, Babito, that used to do the radios. He had a hip hop radio show in New York. I ended up being friends with him because a friend of his, Ramon, that he played basketball with. Ramon, who's in movies now. He was in Transformers 2.
Oh, okay.
But Babito's in any documentary about music in New York. He shows up in the documentary. And he was telling me everything I used. He's like, oh my God, I got the vinyl of that song. I can't believe you used that. I mean, he had stuff like vinyls, and he pulled the vinyl out of the Haru Percussion Group. And I was like,
crazy.
It's like, to
change fashion, music.
Sí, no, pero esa canción, I think that song was like perfect for you.
Yeah.
You know, the solo part, because I've seen it, actually at that Congress, a team performed it.
Yeah, it was Sion Bristol. There was a thing about that.
No, hubieron dos equipos que lo hicieron.
Oh, sí.
Oh, yeah?
Hey, John.
Oh,
Salsa Mania did it too,
San
from San Francisco. And at the same Congress, so 3 performances.
The same song.
At any rate. So what I'm getting at is, I think that song was tailor-made for you. Right? I don't know if it looks as good as a group as it does as a solo piece. And I've seen your side-by-side on video, the solo piece.
Yeah.
Because you can play, bro. I mean, increíble. Oye, ven acá. Entonces, pasa el Welcome to the Party. Then what happens to Frank after that? Like, what, you know?
Coño, espérate. Antes de eso fue la palomilla. Antes de Welcome to the Party, la palomilla explotó también en Europa especialmente, right? Y la cosa de los
But that's like saying la palomilla risky business. Y Welcome to the Party was Top Gun.
Right.
For you know, it's a great movie, but Top Gun was way better.
Right.
You know, it was a bigger explosion, right? It took it to another
but
level.
Like I said, it was this compounded things that were happening like an avalanche, you know.
Yeah.
And people were bringing me in the first place because they saw us doing that. But we did this other one called Baranga by Tito Rodriguez. We did that one. But it was, you know, it was like there was the way that I was thinking about choreography, the way I was putting things together, and then the fact that there was such a, you know how they say artists, if you want an artist when you see their work that you know immediately that is them, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And that it wasn't really a thing in the dance as much. Felipe Polanco had it for sure, right? Where Felipe, when he did something, that's Felipe.
Yeah.
His stamp was on it because that elegancia and the thing and
La canción puede ir a 100 millas por hora y
yes, boom, like I mean it was, and so that stamp, because that song kind of, because I was into a lot of funk, I was into a lot of like boogaloo and Latin funk and all this stuff that was like buried that nobody was using in the scene. And so that started to become associated with me, and people would send me stuff that had that vibe, and this song is good for you, like check this song out, maybe you would like it. I'm seeing you doing a routine to this, and people would send me music constantly.
Oye, Frankie, y ven acá, porque estamos en la misma época, ¿verdad? En la misma época de Welcome to the Party. that whole on one, on two, West Coast, East Coast. Did you ever get caught up in that?
No,
Did that
no.
ever affect you, or
No.
you know, because that was pretty crazy. Because I remember
Yeah.
that same Congress you did Welcome to a Party, Francisco Vázquez se repone en tarima, empezó a
Sí.
hablar bien loco. Yo, ¿qué
Yeah,
pasa
yeah.
este loco?
I
Y
know.
ese
Hablando en
mismo
New York,
año
y
en San
el-
Francisco
sí.
se pelearon.
Sí, se
Oh,
pelearon.
sí, sí, sí.
Una cosa increíble.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
did that ever affect you? Did you were like,
No, I
did
was
you just
never-
paid it no mind?
No, it wasn't a thing for me. You know, all those the one dancers, like the salsa bravas and the
Rumbero.
rumberos, and I was cool with those guys. You know, like being in Puerto Rico early when the Congreso thing started, right in '97, right? It was '97 when the
Congreso
first time.
Mundial.
Ahí en el
Ili Rizari.
comienzo, ¿sabe? You know, when we first saw each other, and it was like, wow, look what they're doing is so different. You know, the way that los venezolanos estaban al revés, con la derecha adelante,
sí, sí.
and we were all like turning our heads like, what are they doing? You know, it was like, because there was so much separation and things developed in a vacuum on islands. You know, there wasn't a lot of cross-pollination. So I respected what I was seeing. I had my favorites, Papa Tambor and
Allá en Puerto Rico.
yeah, de Puerto Rico.
Tiki,
You know,
era
Jorge,
Tiki.
Jorge Santana.
Jorge Santana, forget it, man.
Tiki Colonia.
Yeah,
Colón,
that stuff, Felipe, like
Tito
that
Orto.
stuff. Tito Orto was there with Papa Tambor.
Yeah.
But I appreciated what they were doing too. You know what I mean? It was different than what we did, and we had our lanes. You know, and because I never felt like we were doing the same thing. We were doing it to the same music.
Right.
And that was the beautiful thing, is that the taste in music was specific back then. It was much more about the salsa dura. It was much more. You heard much more faña.
Yeah.
There was a vibe there that was consistent, whereas it's shifted now, and I don't find what I'm into very easily anymore. You know, and especially across with people that do different styles. And back then, you did it your way, and they did it their way, but we were doing it to Ray Barretto. You know what I'm saying? Like, we recognized what was happening. You know? So I never got wrapped up in that. I always felt like I started on one in the ballroom place, and it took me forever to switch. And then once I switched, I was able to dance, because there was a whole crew of one dancers that used to go to the Copa, and they were bad, right? I consider
Bad
them
meaning
mambo
good.
dancers.
Bad meaning
Right.
good
Yeah.
for the
Meaning
new
good,
kids, for the newbies listening.
Right. Nancy Ortiz, that danced with us
Vaya,
at Eddie's,
yeah.
she was from that crew of one that to this day I still see those people, and I'm like, oh man, we have so much respect for each other, because they used to hoof. They were nasty.
Yeah.
And they were on one, right? But they had all the juice and all the sandung and all the arroz con gandula, everything was there, right? But
That's
so
funny.
I understood it, you know what I mean? It was a rhythmical change. I know that switching to the two and understanding why I made the switch and understanding why I felt like it was a better option for me, you know,
Yeah.
that was clear in my mind, but it was never a competition, you know? It was, we were just, you know, I was contracted by Bacardi at the beginning. I was taking the place of Brenda and Jason Molina as the New York representative when they would go around. Tito was dancing with Vanessa back then, right? And Rogelio would come with his
Rogelio
partner,
Moreno.
right? And we had like Puerto Rico, New York, and LA. And then Bacardi would do these congresses in Chicago and wherever the hell. And we would go as the talent. And we were contracted, and we were the talent. Like, we did it together. It wasn't a competition. Then when the Jersey dancers, when everybody started to get into the circuit, they started to come, you know, there started to become this beef with the one and the two. And
Yeah.
It's like, you know, Tupac and Biggie died, right? Like,
Right.
you know, this whole thing
Yeah.
has been over. Now you guys are going to bring it inside.
Exactly,
I
yeah.
couldn't understand it. It's like,
yeah,
what the hell's
it was
going on?
goofy. I kind of like, I don't know, it just passed me by, you know. I heard about it.
I didn't know if it affected you.
No,
or if you,
I was.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of the places I visited they were on one, because we were introducing the two to a lot of places, and so there was this process of like, you know, and there were times where I would teach on one just to be able to get the information across, because they were just locked in. There was no
Right.
trend. There was no changing them. The one locks you in. It's really hard to dance on two starting on one. It takes a long time to transition. I didn't feel that going the other way, right? With people that are already dancing on two, if they, you know, to dance on one, you because you have to learn about music to dance on two, you're a little more flexible. Somebody's dancing on three, I'm fine.
can
You know what I mean?
easily
Like
switch,
I know that the rhythm I'm looking for the song they're making, you know,
Yeah.
and I know I have to shift my ear in the music to make the song. You know, it's like you don't learn that if you're hitting the downbeat constantly, because that's what you do naturally, and so the one caters to your natural tendency. It doesn't force you to break the mania, and you get really stuck there, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the two forces you to break it a little bit, and then you're more fluid all of a sudden, because of course you want to hit the downbeat. They do that on purpose. You know, the piano's doing that on purpose. Ging, ging, do, ging, 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 right? They're hitting those. They're making those downbeats strong. But all the Cuban African stuff is contratiempo. It's all that stuff underneath is the up. You know, the breath in all of a sudden. And it's sophisticated, you know, and a lot of people didn't want to deal with anything that was too sophisticated. They just want to jump around, you know.
That's
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
You know, I remember my first salsa congress. I was performing with Salsa Mania, and I think this is a 2001 congress in Los Angeles, inside the Hollywood Park Casino.
Damn.
Whoa, long time ago.
Oh
bro.
man, that's
and then
we going back for those of y'all don't
we
know.
were dancing on one with Salsa Mania, of course, and then I took a class with Eddie
Yeah.
and Felipe Polanco. That just blew my mind. I
man.
quit dancing on one right in that concert,
Right.
I mean that congress, and after that I started dancing on two.
Wow.
Which I trained with Gabriel Romero.
Right.
You know?
Gabriel, yeah.
So I danced with his company for many years. But right there, as soon as I saw what they were teaching, the way they were explaining the music, the clave, the tumba, I was like, oh man, we don't use that in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Just one, 2, 3, 5.
Sí, claro, claro.
That just changed my mind.
Yo siempre siempre le he dado crédito a Gabriel.
Yeah.
Because we had a party, friends, and I'm playing conga. I'm self-taught conga by ear.
Right.
So I didn't know nothing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Yeah,
nada,
of course,
nada.
yeah.
Entonces Gabriel viene donde me dice, you should dance on two. Y yo lo miré yo, what is that? Y entonces me dijo el slap de la conga.
Sí, sí, sí.
Y yo pisa en el slap y él me hizo el tutumpa. Y yo, that's it? I've been dancing on 2 cents.
That's it.
That was all I needed. Because ya yo sabía tocar la conga, lo que yo no entendía en la numeración de...
Tú sabes que el machito le dijo eso a Cuban Pete en el Palladium, que él estaba mal porque estaba fuera de clave y que él tenía que usar la clave, y ahí él se puso usando el do, rompiendo en el do, and Tito Puente told Eddie was already doing it, but Tito said, you're doing it right, doing it on the contratiempo. And Tito used to kick dancers off the stage if they were dancing on one, right? He would stop them.
No way.
Ask Francisco Vasquez if you have a chance to tell him the stories, because Francisco Vasquez, the Vasquez
one of
brothers are
those?
the ones that are telling me the stories, right?
Okay.
Where he would be dancing in front of the stage, and Tito would stop the band and tell him, right, because he was on one.
Shit.
You know, it's deep.
Wow.
And he's like, no, 1 or 2, yo lo siento. But because Tito's a stickler musically, like for musical correctness, right? And so he wouldn't have it. Like, he just couldn't have it. It's like clapping. You're watching musicians or jazz musicians, and you're clapping 1, 3, 5, 7. The musicians want to kill themselves, right? You clap on 2, 4, 6, and 8, right? It's a thing. They understand that in church, right? The black churches, black music. You immediately do that, right?
Oh yes.
It's this thing. It's like this,
yes.
the pop mentality of the downbeat.
Right.
You know, and it's a non-musical approach to the thing, right? And so when musicians are talking about it, they're very much like, no, the conga. It's not just the conga, the clave, the conga, but the conga is the best representation of all the points of congruence that are hitting on the two, from the clave, from the cowbell, from the cascara. Everything is being emphasized there, and you get a pulse on 2 the same way you get a pulse on 3 in reggae, right? And everybody knows that rhythmically, that there's a pulse of boom, boom, bop, boom, boom, bop.
Yeah.
There's a pulse on 3 in reggae, and in Latin music based on the son, on the danzón, you have a pulse on 2, right?
Yeah.
They all their dances are 2, 3, 4, or the changui, the son, the danzón, they're all dance 2, 3, 4, 6, 7.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, man.
there you go. It's so to me, since that day, it just not only changed my mind, but it kind of, I want to say, forced me to learn percussion,
Right?
because I want to improve my
Yes.
dancing and understand it better. So, and even to today, I mean, I don't teach like the way you do, but I teach a few classes here
Right.
and there in Berkeley, and I use
Use the
conga,
congas, yeah.
y clave
Absolutely.
to break down
Beautiful.
everything first. That's
Beautiful.
it.
Yeah.
After that,
Beautiful,
okay, you
D.
can follow the piano, the
Yeah.
bass, but always the conga.
Yeah.
Always.
Sí. Es increíble, es increíble. Para mí el 2 se llama el slap. Así me lo memorizo, el slap. Y lo he seguido así. Y he dado, y me acuerdo que hice un workshop of sorts con Tiani.
Ajá,
Y yo explicando la campana con la conga,
Sí.
cómo va con la clave. Y
Sí.
todo el mundo me miraba y yo, mira, la conga está de principio a fin. So that one's easy. I know it's the hardest one to hear.
Right.
But it's there from
Absolutely.
beginning to end.
Yeah.
The cowbell comes like a little later, so because the guy's
Right.
busy playing the bongo doing his thing, and it's going contra la conga,
That's
so it's
it.
not going with the conga, so it's a little
And that was
off
my
too.
thing with the clave is that the clave is not always audible, and,
Yeah.
and even musicians can't tell by listening to a song if it's 2/3 or 3/2 clave, and you're using something as a mechanism that's not always there. It's asymmetrical también,
Right.
and our basic step is symmetrical.
Right.
Por eso es que cambia.
Eso. Y la conga está conectado a la clave, and so if you're connected to the conga, then you're connected to the clave, and you don't have to worry about it. You know,
Yeah,
like you don't have to
yeah.
worry about if the clave is there or if it's 2/3 or 3/2.
Uh-huh.
You're there. You're connected, right? I even to this point, if my girlfriend does something bad, I say, "Mami, tú estás fuera de clave, mami. Eso no puede ser. Eso está fuera de clave, no puede." Yeah. Anytime somebody does something a little sideways, you're off clave, man. You can't be doing that. You got to get here on time, Jack.
Yo diría que mi sugerencia para ti es que si estás fuera de clave, pues clávala.
Bleep, 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 bleep. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ay, Dios mío, pero así fue que lo entendí yo, pues lo está explicando a los muchachos. O sea, bien básicamente porque no tengo la, ¿cómo se llama? The knowledge,
Right.
you know, de
La sabiduría,
música,
ya.
la sabiduría. So yo explicaba, mira, el slap de la conga va con el segundo hit del cencerro, que
Sí,
va
sí,
con el primer hit de la clave, si es 2-3.
Sí, sí, sí.
Yo, créeme, they
Sí,
hit
sí.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Tumpa.
Y el cha-cha-cha está llenando los dos
Ajá.
tonos abiertos, gugum, ese es el cha-cha-cha.
open tone, sí,
Yeah,
sí.
yeah.
To me, cha-cha makes sense. Cha-cha on one makes no sense to me.
No.
No,
Let me tell you
my
something.
gosh.
I'll dance salsa on one with
Ballroom
whatever me
people do
dicen.
that.
A cha-cha-cha, we're sitting down if you're
Oh,
dancing
man.
on one. I won't do it. That's
Yeah.
the one. That's where the line is drawn. That's not happening, right? On salsa, no problem. You know, we'll do it. When the second cha-cha-cha hits, especially because now you're lucky if you get one, right? So that you got to take advantage. But no, yeah, that's when I sit down. That's when no, you got it.
Strictly on
Ah,
two.
ta, ta, ta. I do the Mr. Miyagi. Ah, ta, ta, ta.
No, porque lo que pasa es que en ballroom lo bailan en el uno.
Absolutely.
Which is
Absolutely.
super weird.
Yeah, yeah.
Porque está el tuntún ahí, está
Yeah,
el
yeah.
cha-cha. ¿Me entiendes? No sé.
Yeah.
Es increíble.
Y ahora de aquí de Reno, ¿para dónde vas? ¿Qué otro congreso? ¿Qué otro
I've got
festival?
one day at home, and then I go to Okinawa, and I'm in Okinawa and Japan
I was
for a
stationed
couple of
there.
weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I get back on the 22nd. I get back home.
Is that you're gonna be doing workshops or is that
Yeah.
Congress or
Yeah, there's
separate?
an event. There's an
Okay.
anniversary event. Eric, that's been teaching. He's in the military. He's been teaching salsa out there. Puertorriqueño de Nueva York. He knows my karate instructor.
Oh, yeah.
He knows him. He's like
Small world?
small world, man. But he was in the Marines, so he was stationed and he stayed out there. He's having an anniversary, and he wanted to bring me for the anniversary. And then from there, I'm doing a little tour from Tokyo in Japan. You know, doing little parties and events and workshops and shows and stuff.
Y ven acá, y qué, your little hiatus, I want to call it hiatus. What drove
So
that?
in 2004, I stepped back to do the dance, concert dance stuff with the company. Long format, half-hour pieces in theaters, selling tickets to have
Right,
people
right.
come sit down, see 2-hour shows, right? We did that for 20 years, and in the meantime, when we did go to congresses, we went in that capacity. Con todo el grupo, me tienen que dar todo el domingo, los shows del domingo es nosotros haciendo un show de 2 horas o
Yeah.
1 hora. And then we would go to a congress. Otherwise, it was taking me away from what I wanted to do, but also because I could see that the bubble was going to burst with the Salsa Congreso thing, and that I was seeing the same people. They were having multiple events on the same weekend in the same city, and I was
Right.
like,
Yeah, right.
It's getting watered down.
this is gonna burst, and then they're gonna get rid of me, and I'm gonna be stuck. And I'd rather do that on my own terms before ante que me botan, ¿sabe? And so, but I always wanted to do the dance theater stuff like that. Like I said, we started the company with that idea of, because I wanted to change the way the general public saw what we were doing, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Culturally, the potential of sophistication that is here, they don't get that, right? Whenever you see salsa in a movie, it's always dirty dancing and it's always sexy, and it's
Salsa,
always,
salsa.
you know, it's like,
Yeah.
it's really offensive. And I wanted to change that perception, and you do that by presenting stuff that's sophisticated and doing it in a sophisticated way and having layers, and not just showing the art form, but using the art form as a language to talk about life and things that people can recognize, that they've been through. And so that was a big deal. It wasn't Broadway. It's not Broadway. That's not what I didn't want to do hokey, plays that use salsa. I wanted to use Afro-Latin dance artistically.
Kind of like Albanese or something like that?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Right? And so, we were the first Afro-Latin company to do Lincoln Center, to do Jacob's Pillow, and they respected the hell out of us because we weren't salseros trying to be contemporary dancers. We did all the juice was there, but it was formatted in a way that contemporary dance is formatted. It's presented in a way, longer format. I have more room to play now because I can do boleros and I can do Mozambiques and I can do afros. I don't have to worry about I have 3 minutes to make a point anymore, right? I have room to create a landscape, and artistically that's intoxicating because everything is, I have a whole big sandbox to play in.
You
now.
could showcase different dances into one piece.
Then when I come back to the congresos and I do a bolero, everybody's like, what is he doing? You know what I mean? Because it's like, with your 4 minutes, if you don't burn people's face off in 3 minutes, it's like, what are you doing, And so, coming back, it was hard for me because it was like, artistically, we were such in a different place than what was happening here. But slowly after a while, especially after the company kind of settled and kind of transitioned out, people, started getting married and having babies and leaving, I started to come back more, and I felt a responsibility to represent an alternative way of seeing what was going on here, because it had evolved into something very specific that I feel is very limited, you know. And because part of what I wanted to do with the company was show little kids, if they wanted to grow up and be a Latin dancer, there was a way to do that at a high level where they could get paid and make a living doing artistic work, and they would have respect from the arts community for the stuff they were doing, and that the Congress circuit isn't the only way to be a Latin dancer, right? That there's other ways to showcase work and other capacities to other audiences. And so I feel a responsibility to represent that perspective, a deeper perspective about the dance, a longer term living with the dance, what it means for your life, like as you get older, what it becomes, not just thinking about it as a young kid that's athletic and's got a lot of energy in the moment, but how does this evolve as you evolve as a human being, and you change and you grow, and you can't throw your leg up over your head anymore.
You get old.
You
Slow
can't
down.
flip a woman over your head anymore. After a while, you got to calm it down, right? And so because otherwise it turns right into ballet again, where until you can do it till you're 19, and then you got to retire because you're in a wheelchair.
Exactly.
Your body won't let you go any further. And if you let them, the kids will do that. They'll change the world into stuff they can only participate in. You know what I'm saying? Like pop music is like that. And so you watch in boxing, and 30 years old, you're an old man in boxing. And it's like, damn, 30 years old, I was on fire at 30 years old. And I think about that, and I'm like, man, I was right in it, And so that's what I start seeing is these kids. This is not sustainable. This has got an expiration date on it, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, karate, the philosophies, and that's for life. The old man is the one I always wanted to be. Was the old man that lifted his hand and people fall down. The guy that was floating around in an orange robe with the long eyebrows. Right?
Grasshopper.
Somehow the eyebrows would grow real long. I don't know.
The long beard too.
Yeah, that's what I always wanted to be. Mr. Miyagi. I didn't want to be Daniel's son. I wanted to be Yoda. I didn't want to be Luke. You know what I mean? Now everything is about young and stupid. It's like that representation isn't there, and nobody's doing it, right? Nobody's being the representative of what an older dancer is supposed to look like, because the older dancers that are doing it are still trying to do it like 20-year-olds, right? And so the 20-year-olds think they're doing it better because they have more access to the capacity to do that athletic stuff. And if we don't come in and with the orange robes and the long eyebrows and show them, right, you touch them and knock them down, there's no model of what they are working towards ultimately as they become masters in what this is, you know?
Yep.
And I think that that's the thing, right? You can't get away from that ultimately. You can't just pull the cute stuff out and leave the culture. You know, you have to bring the culture with you, and when you do that, you realize people live with this stuff on the islands, you know? They live with it. It's not something they do. They don't do it just to be happy. You know, the songs are sad, the songs are angry, you know, all of that is involved in the way these people interact with it. And this has become a caricature of that, you know? The culture's not part of it. Africa's not part of it.
Sí, claro.
Yeah.
Claro. Yo estoy de acuerdo con él.
Yeah.
Yo estoy de acuerdo con él. Por eso es que ahora en los non-Spanish speakers, por eso le gusta el Latin Jazz y no Willy Rosario. ¿Me entiendes? Y yo lo pinto así, porque me dicen, es que Orlando has a specific taste. Sí, se llama salsa. Okay, eso es lo que se llama. Okay, because I know what they're singing about. They're singing about this. It'll take me back to a spot in 1986 where I was at X, right? So that's what it does. I'm sure Nietzsche and these bands might do that to you guys too in Colombia.
Right.
So que te lleva un sitio, mano, yo me acuerdo.
Es nostalgia, nostalgia es lo que manda. No felicidad, pero nostalgia. Héctor Lavoe tenía, lo que él daba a la gente era nostalgia. And that's the powerful thing. There's other artists in France. They had a singer named Edith Piaf, and she would sing, and you were transported to Paris. Like anybody who left Paris said, I'm back home. Yeah. That's powerful. Nostalgia is powerful.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I remember watching my grandparents dance bolero. Right?
Wow.
And of course, growing up, es la música de viejos. A mí no me gusta el bolero.
Sí.
It was later on when I moved to the States that I started missing my music. Because I was in Colombia, I was a rockhead. I used to play rock, I had long hair.
Yeah, no, Spanish
Guns
rock, forget
Roses,
it.
You know?
We could tell.
Guns N' Roses, bro.
Yeah. and of course, me vengo para los Estados Unidos, I started missing what I had in Colombia, which is la buceta, el bus pasa, there is salsa.
Sí.
En la panadería te están tocando salsa. Allí el vallenato, la cumbia, you know.
Saliendo del taxi, sí.
So I missed that, and when I came here, I started buying music and going to the clubs. You know, immerse myself.
It's the same story, right? It's the same story.
Immerse myself in that culture here. That to me was mine, but
desafortunadamente la última vez que fue a Puerto Rico, que fue marzo del año pasado, creo que fue. No, ya eso no es así.
No,
en la panadería.
Sí.
En el carro.
El reggaetón dañó todo.
Ya tú sabes. Ya tú sabes, yo soy Bad Bunny. Tú sabes, you know, all that stuff started, bro. Te me preguntó.
No, se dañó la cosa,
No,
fue el reggaetón. Y sabe que cuando empezó el reggaetón, él estaba usando el tema del Gran Combo también.
Sí.
Lo estaba,
pues eso lo hace Atego también. Pero lo que me hace reír es que el reggaetón viene de la bomba y plena. El heartbeat de reggaetón es bomba.
Claro.
¿Me entiendes? Pero eso de Bad Bunny que yo lo imito, no es por cómo canta, es como el cabrón habla.
Sí.
Tú sabes, él aceptó un Latin Grammy.
Yo quiero darle las gracias a todo Puerto Rico, pues, tú sabes, la isla me apoyó siempre, y yo espero que
así, tú sabes.
Oh my God.
Bad Bunny. But you know what, bro? Whatever criticism I have for that genre, and I didn't grow up to it. I was at the beginning of it, and I left Puerto Rico, so I didn't grow up with it. So cuando salió Daddy Yankee, y había uno que se llama Big Boy, que era chiquitito, and all these cats came out.
Right.
They've taken Puerto Rico to another level. They're doing what Salceros dreamed they could have done.
In
you know,
terms
like
of world
Grammys, you know, Bad Bunny, and #1 artist.
And not even signed to a record.
That's
not even signed to a major record label either.
Doing it on their own,
Sí, pero que llegue un artista como Bad Bunny que ganó Artista del Año en los American Music Awards.
Yeah, that's deep.
That's another level of fame, bro. Like I said, a salsero would dream. Los salseros de la época, ¿no? Y a eso yo le doy props a ellos. Tú sabes, lo que es Bad Bunny, lo que fue Daddy Yankee, que tal vez fue el más trailblazer de ellos. Vico, sí, pero está hablando en cuanto a traerlo a la fama.
Okay.
Porque Vico viene, y la gente se equivoca, Vico era un rapero. Él era hip hop en español.
Sí.
¿Tú me entiendes? Él era rapero. Eso de reggaetón
hay diferencia allí,
vino después, pero el que lo llevó a otro mundo fue el Daddy Yankee, tú sabes. Él y Don Omar and all these cats. Y después viene
es el de la gasolina.
El favorito mío es Calle 13, because of his words.
Right.
but of what he's saying.
Right,
Not so much the music, just what
Right.
he's saying. It's like very.
Political. Is it?
Yeah,
Sí,
yeah,
papá,
yeah,
bro, yo soy.
Revolucionario.
Si yo pudiera cortaría Estados Unidos por el carajo hace tiempo. Pero anyway, pero el mero hecho, les doy mucho props. But yeah, man. But it was great having
Thank
you,
you,
man.
buddy.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you guys for having me.
Chéverísimo.
The knowledge is in another level, bro.
Thank you, man. Thank you. No,
So-
it's talking to people from that time that appreciate that stuff. It's my heroin, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Yep,
Thank
¿Y
you.
cuándo regresas para Nueva York? Mañana.
Mañana, yeah, I got a day to
Un día después
wash
vas a
my
Japón.
laundry and then I gotta
So
go.
you're gonna be dancing tonight a little
Why
bit.
Yes.
didn't you stay here? Because it's closer.
I should have, but it's hard for me not to be home. You know, like
you
to
drive from
my
home.
dogs and I know. I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
O sea, los perros siempre cambian todo.
Sí, sí.
Sigue el partnership with Leah
Yes,
Robertson,
absolutely.
Yes.
How that happened? Was
She
she
was
a
my student. I
Okay.
trained her from nothing to. She's the one that really represents like the validity of my method.
Uh-huh.
She's the personification of that. Like,
Te iba a
She's
preguntar.
fantastic, man.
damn it.
Te iba a preguntar porque lo mencionaste and I wanted to follow up and it left my head and just
Yes.
came back. You said like Eddie.
Yes.
Like if you left,
Yes.
bad blood. How's your relationship with Eddie
Oh,
today?
it's great. But we had about a year
Uh-huh.
where it was funky,
Yeah.
and he wouldn't let me fix it, And it was right when I started, because Henry Knowles called me and said, I have a plan to make you world famous. Brenda Bird is no longer dancing with Jason Molina, and she says she doesn't want to do it anymore unless it was with you.
Uh-huh.
And he said, I have an idea for the two of you to represent Eddie Torres' style because his back was a mess and he couldn't travel, and you would be the Eddie Torres, the representatives of the Eddie Torres thing.
Right.
And he ran it across Eddie, and Eddie was like, I don't know, Frankie. And so he was like, you got to fix things with Eddie. He's pissed at you for something so that we can do this. And I kept trying. I called him, and he said, I'm dealing with this thing with my back. I'll call you back. Never called me. I went to the studio, and I showed up, and Maria came in, and she put her arm on my shoulder, and she slowly walked me out and said, Eddie's going to be busy today, and walked me out. Yeah. And so, and I told him, I said, listen, I have no malice. You know me. If you want to have a relationship, I can fix it. And it was because when I got the dancers together to do the company, there was a guy named Fernando La Madrid that used to be in New York all the time, taking pictures and filming, but he worked for Diario La Prensa.
Uh-huh.
And he was at the meeting I had with the dancers, and salió en El Diario an article that said the best dancers in New York get together to form a mega group, and somebody showed it to Eddie.
To Eddie.
And our group was disbanded already, but something about that rubbed him the wrong way, and he wasn't having it.
But
so,
Dime.
long story short, I think I already messed that up, but long story short, he forgot his CDs at the airport, and I live in Queens, 10 minutes from JFK, and Maria calls me and says, listen, Eddie left his music at the airport. Can you run his CDs? This is,
Yeah.
I ran, forgot
Picked
my
him
mind.
up.
I got the thing, I called her back, and he got on the phone. And he said, Frankie, thank you so much. Tell me where I have to go. I'll pick it up. I told him. He drove to Queens the next day, and we just hugged in the middle of the street on my block on 108th Street in Queens. We hugged for about 20 minutes. And I said, I never would ever mean you any ill will. And he said, I know. It's me. It's stuff that I'm dealing with. And we've been absolutely cool ever since that.
It's a common theme, right?
Yeah.
Even in música, ¿verdad?
Yeah,
Porque tú
yeah.
tienes a Willy Rosario y cuando Gilberto se va, no se hablaron por un año porque tú sabes, cantante mío,
Right.
whatever. Y
Yeah.
lo mismo con Tony Vega y cuando se fue aquel y cuando,
Yeah,
¿sabes? Todas las
absolutely.
orquestas eran así.
Sí, sí, sí.
So esos eran los old heads,
Yeah.
Eddie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Y tú eres el ¿cómo se llama? El prodigy, no sé cómo se dice en español.
Sí, sí.
Y
Prodigio, sí.
el prodigio de él,
Sí.
y pues tú sabes, no, me va a quitar mi fuego.
Claro.
Ese miedo de que le quites el fuego, ¿me entiendes?
Claro. Eso mismo.
Y sabiendo, y mira, y 30 años después, 20 y pico años después, todavía Eddie Torres está en los
Sí,
congresos y
eso mismo.
tú sabes.
Yeah. So we're cool.
That's
That's
cool.
good, that's
Yeah,
good.
very cool.
Y tú con Franklin,
Sí,
yo
sí,
sé que tú
hermano,
trabajaste con
eso es
Franklin un
familia.
tiempo, ¿verdad?
Con Franklin,
Ya
mi
no hay ningún
familia.
tipo de beef en Nueva York, nada entre
Franklin
compañías.
es familia conmigo.
Yeah.
Yo, el fin de año, yo le mando un mensaje a su familia, todo. Sí,
Ah,
él
qué
es
bello.
familia. Y nosotros nos criamos juntos y eso es amor de otro nivel.
He was
No
also
tiene
Eddie
nada
Torres?
con baile. Yeah.
Yeah.
He started uptown con los dominicanos, but he ended up, 18 years old, he ended up with Eddie. como una
¿Y él es
estrella.
boricua?
No, él es dominicano.
Oh, ¿de verdad?
Yeah,
Oh, yo
Franklin.
pensaba
Sí,
que él era
Franklin es
boricua.
dominicano, sí.
Franklin
sí,
dominicano.
sí.
Pero vino con ese fuego de los dominicanos,
Yeah.
pero ahí entrenando con nosotros, haciendo las cosas de Eddie, pero con una mente de baile.
Y Adolfo
Diferente.
vino a Eddie después de ti.
Yo ni conocía el nombre de Adolfo hasta que yo ya dejé de hacer estas cosas de los congresos.
Cacho.
Adolfo no bailó con Eddie. Eddie no tenía una
Ya no tienen
compañía.
Él lo entrenó.
Yo estoy muy interesado en saber cuándo él creo o cuándo él está diciéndole a la gente que él bailó con Eddie, porque yo en los 2006 yo oí el nombre de él por la Lori, la bailarina mía. Nosotros ya teníamos 2 años haciendo los shows de teatro y yo tenía el oído en las cosas que estaba haciendo Eddie. Y yo sé que Juan Matos tuvo un momentito que Eddie lo usaba para hacer un solo aquí con su pareja o lo que sea. Pero compañía, no. Esa compañía que había, se rompió con nosotros, con Joe Franklin, Danny Díaz, Jorday, Duplessis,
Cuando murió
Eddie
Tito
Pino, cuando se murió Tito
Eric
Puente.
Baez es después también.
Eddie Baez,
No lo conozco.
no lo conozco.
Él no era de Eddie Torres también. Eric Baez, chiquitito.
No recuerdo.
¿No? Tal vez porque
No
hubo
me
un tiempo,
acuerdo, ya.
porque hubo un tiempo que íbamos a los congresos dando Eddie Torres dancers.
Ajá.
So I don't know if they came from that, all these guys, you know.
Yeah, y como te digo, the second that I did that that I left and we had that meeting, half those dancers disappeared right after that meeting because Eddie, cuando se dio cuenta, started calling these people that during the time that we were in the company, they didn't have a chance por el talento que estaba. Ellos estaban tratando de romper y ahora que nosotros no
No estaban
estaban,
ahí.
él como que escuchó que algo estaba pasando y lo empezó a llamar, y esa cosa de complacer la figura de padre, ¿sabe? El genio, el capitán, tanta energía en tratar de complacer y buscar puesto con esa persona. El minuto que ellos llaman, no importa
vas
lo
para
que
allá.
tú tienes en la mente, como que el corazón te lleva a buscar ese
Sí. Tú vas para allá, claro.
acceptance, ¿sabes? Y Feliz Nancy se fue corriendo y él agarró como un grupito de bailarines de segundo plano que estaban, pero con nosotros ahí no tenían chance de subir a lo que
Right.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Pero la historia, ¿no?
La historia, sí. sí.
Yeah,
Historia.
man.
Es buena,
I
es
was
buena.
there, papi. Yo te conozco. I was there, right? People say they talk a lot of smack.
Yeah.
I was there. I didn't see you
Yeah.
there. What are you talking about, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the old people. That's why Franklin. Tú sabes, Franklin wasn't around for all those years that I was doing. I mean, he was in Spain and doing flamenco, and he in 2011 he started to present himself here in this world.
Ajá.
But he's, that's family. He's been around. He's the only one that understands. Like I can talk to him about things I can't talk to anybody else about. And we were there together. Like I was the nene lindo of the moment, and then Franklin became the new nene lindo, and like we have that experience with what we've been through, and the way he thinks about things. I have tremendous respect for. He respects what I do. That goes beyond the dance at this point.
All right.
Yeah.
So, en esa época eran ustedes, para el 2000, ustedes Santo Rico, me imagino que estaba.
Sí. Yeah, because when I started the group in 2000, Santo Rico was there. They were established. When I was dancing with Eddie,
They were already set.
Yeah.
the
Santo
second
Rico,
that Eddie cut, Tomás me agarró. Mira, I heard you're not dancing with Eddie anymore. And I said, I'm sorry, Thomas. I'm trying to do something on my own. And he's like, oh, right. It's not easy, But he grabbed me quick, fast. Yeah, those guys are my seniors. They were around. They were around before, and I really got together with them in Latin Madness and got to know them.
Right.
Him and Osmar, and we've been tight ever since. But I consider them my seniors. They were there. They were fixtures already.
Nelson Flores.
Nelson
and all,
Flores
yeah,
was
Nelson
there.
Flores,
They
yeah.
were set. They had their own
Flores,
things.
wow, that's
before.
right.
¿Cómo se llama el muchacho que murió de cáncer? De New York, que era promotor.
David Melendez.
Dave Melendez.
Yeah, Dave Melendez.
También tenés buena relación con
Sí.
él.
Y Choco
Él
también.
estaba, all his kids, he used to show them that, all his kids are now men with kids and stuff like that, and they all have this thing with me because, at that time I was the thing that they were all like 13 years old, 12,
Right.
11.
Looking up to you.
Yeah. So yeah.
Good times, man.
Man,
Wow.
good
The
times.
stories.
Sheesh.
Y todavía parece un nene lindo, ¿no?
¿Ah?
Todavía parece un nene lindo.
Súper lindo, yeah.
Sí, oye,
Yeah, for all you
tienes que
guys out there
anotar,
that are
tienes que
listening
anotar qué es lo
around
que
the
comes y
world,
todo
you
eso y mándame la receta porque
Yeah, papi.
está bien.
Agua y
¿no?
lechuga.
Agua y lechuga. O sea, nada. Porque
Estoy
lechuga es
sufriendo
agua.
mucho para el
No eres vegano, ¿no?
¿Cómo? No.
Vegano,
I eat paleo.
Okay.
Paleo. But I've been eating like low carb since I was 28 years old. I was low carb, and then in 2015 I went to like full paleo, and it's very specific, you know, because esto del pan y cosa, we invented that. Like we started doing that, and it's great that everybody has food, but that's not really how we're designed to eat.
You know, I've been a vegan for probably now 10 years.
Yeah.
But I started eating again meat because I had an accident.
Yeah.
Anyways, I needed to eat meat to heal better. Broke my foot,
Right.
the metal, and all this stuff. But my kryptonite is sweet Mexican bread.
Yeah, man. Let me tell you something. Bread is addictive, right? That's why bread is addictive.
Yeah.
And I'm addicted to it still. Todavía, right? I have my cheat days, and on the cheat day voy corriendo al pizza, voy corriendo a los hamburguesas, voy a los pastelillos. You know, pasta.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's me.
Mofongo.
That's me right there.
Mofongo. No, mofongo's okay. Mofongo's okay.
part of your
Sí,
paleo.
no.
Mofongo's vegan.
Mofongo's fine.
No, tiene puerco, ¿no?
Yeah, but for me, paleo, mofongo's fine.
Sí, porque el plátano sale de la tierra,
El
¿no? So it's
plátano,
good.
no.
Pero el mofongo lo mezclan con
Pastelón.
Pachalón.
No,
pastelón.
sí, le echan ese pastelón es riquísimo.
Coño,
Pastelón es un pastelón.
Espérate, si
No,
estamos
pero
hablando de comida, vamos.
mucha gente no sabe eso. Pastelón yo le digo el Puerto Rican lasagna.
Yes.
Alright,
That's
so,
what I tell them too.
básicamente es con niveles de plátano dulce.
Ajá.
¿verdad?
Maduro.
Sí,
tiene carne molida,
Sí.
tiene queso, tiene green beans.
Pero así en niveles.
Ya, en niveles, como una lasaña. Bro,
Sí.
Bad. Cuando vas a Puerto Rico.
no, yo no puedo hacer pastelón.
Sí,
Hablo
en
con mi
Puerto
mamá.
Rico, en Puerto
Sí,
Rico.
ok.
No, buscando chef que no son chef.
Yo puedo hacer pernil, yo puedo hacer los con gandules, yo puedo hacer tostones.
Pero el pastelón
ese
es
another level.
específico, eso
Yeah,
es
ese another
algo,
level.
sí.
Yeah.
Sí, bueno. Eso
Pero hasta el mismo mofongo, mira, mofongo es como para los mexicanos hacer tamales, porque mofongo es mucho trabajo. Nadie en Puerto Rico hace 3 mofongos.
Ajá,
O sea, tú haces
hacer
un
un
cojón
combo,
de
sí,
plátano y después tienes mofongo por una semana.
Sí.
¿Me entiendes? Entonces, pues, no es como que, sí, vamos a comer mofongo hoy. No,
Yeah.
that's why you eat it at the restaurant.
Right.
You know, because it's just so hard to make.
Sí, sí, sí.
You know, it's time consuming and laboring, you know.
La
you know.
comida.
I'm hungry, Jack. You guys got thinking about food.
Ay, Dios mío. Pero qué bueno,
Qué
Frankie,
chévere.
tenerte con nosotros.
Un amor puro amor, man. Thank you guys
Gracias.
so much.
And thanks for the compliment. He actually said he liked how I dance.
Oh man,
Hey.
no, because
Hey,
let me tell you
man.
something. That's the thing. Like his thing is the thing I grew up with. That's what I grew up watching in Latin Quarter. That thing lights me up, man. When I see it, it's like all this stuff comes back. And I tell you, I find as I get older, it's harder to find the things that inspire you and make you happy. It's harder to find those things because you form those things as your brain is forming with the stuff that surrounds you in the moment. And that stuff is in flux. That stuff changes, you know? The stuff that's around you, you know, the stuff that influences you, the stuff that's in your environment, that stuff changes. And now you're wired to be inspired by this very specific stuff. And as you get older, it gets harder and harder to engage in that stuff. And every once in a while, you get a glimpse of it, and it just all comes back, right? It's a different chemical cocktail that happens to you, and it's like, no, but that's same thing with Izzy. When I watch Izzy dance, when I watch you, I was back in Latin Quarter watching you, and that's what I told, I forgot who I was standing with, but I said, coño, I'm back in Latin Quarter watching this dude right now. It's like, and it was a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing because that's beyond. That's the thing I'm always trying to talk about with people is that it's beyond what you're doing. You know, it's beyond this stuff of of the spectacle. You know, it's the essence of the thing. You know, it's the rice and beans of the thing that is the most important thing. You know, after the split is only gonna last you so long. It's like you got a nice butt right now. Enjoy it, but you better have a personality
It's a good way
because
to-
that's just not gonna last you that long, right?
Yeah.
The personality is going to last a lot
Right.
longer. It's gonna last a lot
Solo el culo se le va a Celia, nada más a Celia.
But thank you guys. Thank you guys. I really
Gracias.
appreciate
Hey,
it.
Frankie, real quick. Hey,
That's
where
right.
can they tell everybody out there in Radio Land, where can they find you at all the social media platforms?
FrankieMartinez.org, AfroLatinFunk.dance. That's where I have my online classes. Frankie.Martinez on Instagram. If you put in BoriQua, if you put in Afro Latin dance, if you put in Frankie Martinez, you're gonna find me. It's hard to miss.
He's also on Wikipedia.
I'm all over the place. Yeah, I was on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
You were for a while, right?
I don't know who
It's
put me
a-
there, but it was there.
Yeah.
Is it
I
gone?
saw that there too.
Huh?
It's
It
still
was
there, right?
I think so. I mean, I don't go in checking to see if I'm
Right.
in Wikipedia, but
Yeah.
yeah.
You don't Google yourself?
I don't.
You
My
never-
mother tells me all this stuff. I was watching you online. She knows everything I'm doing
Yeah.
before I do. Yeah.
Oye, so tu nombre es que Francisco.
No, Frankie Martinez, escrito en my birth certificate.
Ajá.
Mi papá es Frank
Ajá.
y el papá de él es Francisco.
Ahí está.
Ah,
Francisco.
And
Frank,
so I'm
Frank.
Junior. I'm Frankie Junior,
Uh-huh.
but my father's birth certificate name is Frank. So I don't know where the Junior comes from. And his father's Francisco.
Ya.
So no, but I should have probably been a pitcher for the Yankees because that's my name on the birth certificate is
So,
Frankie.
llegan a ser en Puerto Rico, le hubiesen puesto Paco. Se imagina que hubiese sido Paco Martínez.
Sí, sí, sí. Mi papá le llamaban Papo.
Paco,
Papo.
Paco. Paco o Papo.
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 Mi papá era Papo.
Ah.
Y yo era Frankie Chiquito.
Porque
Frankie
hay,
Chiquito.
hay dos apodos en Puerto Rico, Paco
Ajá.
y Fico.
Ah,
No, Fico es
Fico.
Federico. Paco era para Francisco.
Sí.
Los
Mira.
Paco.
Paco.
So, imagínate este que se llama Paco Martino. Paco Martínez, that sounds so Latino, bro.
Right, right.
It's like
Yeah.
Paco. That's Paco.
Yeah. You know, my mother's maiden name is Medina. And I'm always thinking, coño, what a beautiful name that is Medina. I would have loved that name.
Y te va a dar otra.
Frankie Medina.
Medina.
Martínez Medina. Pero te va a dar otra.
Francisco Medina.
Te dije que estamos un poquito alineados.
I would have had Felipe
Puro-
Polanco. I would have had some competition for
Sí,
Felipe.
sí.
But that's Felipe
Puro, puro
Polanco has
nombre
a
como
great
artista en
name.
novela.
¿Cómo se
tú
llama?
sabes.
Yeah, eso.
Felipe
Una novela.
Polanco, sí.
Yeah.
Pero te voy a decir algo. Yo dije que estábamos conectados a cierto punto militar,
Ya,
artes
ya.
marciales. Te voy a decir una verdad. Mi apellido es Félix,
Ah.
pero fue por error.
Tú sabes que el papá de mi mamá se llamaba Félix. Dale.
¿De nombre o apellido?
No, de nombre.
Ok, ese es mi apellido.
Ok.
Porque ese era el apellido de la abuela.
Ah,
Perdón, sí, de la abuela de mi papá.
sí.
Ok, porque ella está encojonada con el marido.
Oh, boy.
So, cuando ella fue a
Siempre bochinche, ¿verdad?
cuando fue a registrarlo a mi abuelo, los registró con el apellido de ella.
De ella.
¿Sabes cuál es el apellido de mi abuelo? Paterno.
No.
Martínez.
Éramos yo todos Martínez, los tres.
Eso,
Y este es Felipe Martínez.
Mira. And you know what? The point of this whole conversation is that at some point, everybody's a Martinez.
I like that. I like that. Yes.
I like that.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you, Frankie.
Thank you.
Frankie. Appreciate
All right.
That was awesome, brother.
Bueno,
Appreciate
regresamos con la música.
Bueno, sí, vámonos para Colombia. Vamos a escuchar algo de Quinto Mayor. Y esto es un cover, la canción Guaguancó, pa' que sabe. Ya regresamos. WorldSalsaRadio.com.